Hello again, everybody, as we continue on getting ready for kickoff for the 10th and final game of the year for the Roosevelt University football team in 2025. Lakers on the road this week at Grand Valley State, joined now by Roosevelt University head football coach Billy McKeon. And, Coach, first off, congratulations. Must have been a great feeling last week. Been kind of a bumpy road at times this year for the football squad, but a resounding win last week, and in a way, a couple of ways, a history-making win as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited for our players and our coaches and everybody involved. A lot of hard work goes into it, and sometimes you're looking for that result, but it's a process orientated program where we're trying to get better each week and play our best football the next game and the next play and all that. So, but really excited for that, and all the hard work. It shows that hey, it pays off. Hard work works.
I know coaches never think that the game is in hand, but was it at least nice for you to have a little bit of a more relaxed maybe tone in the second half of last week's game?
Yeah, I mean when we got to the final few minutes there, you finally you start to get that relief of okay, I think we're in a good spot where we could get some guys some opportunities as well, maybe that haven't had any yet, and we had some younger guys dressed for the first time or second time or one of the few times that did dress. So being able to get those guys involved in the game and getting to see their working behind the scenes, get to hit the main stage was exciting to see, and really proud of all those guys and their effort and everybody that's been a part of it the whole year. So
I know in observing sports for as long as I have that I've kind of at times learned the hard way that you're never truly most of the time home free. Is there ever a point as a coach where you finally were able to during a game to say, hey, we've kind of got this in our hip pocket?
Well, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Unless you're taking knees. Once you get into victory formation, maybe that might be the case. But even then, you're there's a snap. The game's never fully closed until that clock kicks zeros. But you get yourself into a situation where you got a couple score lead and that you're gonna shrink the game down a little bit here and try to get the clock going and you start to now we're not concerned, but we're excited to see who's in there, and a lot of times that tends to be different people at that point. So they haven't made as many mistakes on the field because they have many opportunities, right? So they're going to go out there and learn and put some reps on tape, and we'll be able to coach it and fix mistakes from there. But ultimately you're really just play by play, until that thing says zero and you don't get to run any more of them. That's kind of the mentality that I always have, and it's always been the case. So.
I know being one who follows auto racing, and if a car and a driver has a substantial lead, final 3 and 4 laps, I know the driver hears every small rattle and every small noise that occurs in the car, and they're in perpetual fear that something might happen. I know it's maybe apples and oranges, but is there ever a time as a coach where you kind of have a similar feeling that you think you're on cruise control, but you're never, like you said, you're never happy until it says triple zeros on the scoreboard clock?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a cruise control moment unless unless the clock is running and it's you're within reach of the score. But I wouldn't say that's a great. A lot of parallels there. You don't really hear the rattle. Any play in a football game could be 6 points, right? So your attention never really goes off of that. There's whether you're playing the most talented team or the least talented team, all it takes is one guy to trip over his shoe and the guy goes 70 yards for a touchdown. So you're never fully in it. And the same thing could be on offense. You drop a snap and they're running the other way for 6 points. So it just you're never fully in control until like you said it hits zero. And you're aware of all of the things going into it, right? So you're constantly alert to it and making sure that the details are still buttoned up and everybody's still working hard and not taking nothing for granted.
Looking back, it had to have been nice for you and the team to, in a way, kind of turn the tables. We've talked so often this year about trying to get control of the game early, trying to dictate the pace early. In this case, last week, you were able to do so. Got out to a nice, fairly sizable lead early, and that it's such a nice turnaround, isn't it, to be in that position?
Yeah, absolutely. We took the ball off the we won the coin toss and took the ball and went down and scored. That was in the plan. That was what we talked about leading up into the game, and wanted to make sure, again, if expecting a tight game, wanted to make sure that we had the decision in the fourth quarter with the win factor there. So, they're going to take the ball in the second half. If you win the toss and you take it, they're going to take it in the second half, or they'll give you the ball twice, which is, we'll take that too, right? But, so we knew we'd have the choice of which way we'd want to kick in the second half, and make sure we had the win in the fourth, to make sure that if we did need to win a tight game, they'd have a hard time throwing into it, and we'd have an easier time throwing with it or kicking with it, whatever that might be. So that was a part of the plan. And then, defensively, that next drive, we get a stop on a 4th and 1 and short field. And again, would like to cash it in there and get another score. But again, this kind of flipped the field there and kept it down in that zone, and made things difficult. And then ultimately, the next drive, we were able to get a score and get a 2-score lead, and kind of get them into a spot where they were uncomfortable, like we've talked about. And they were on their third quarterback of the season. So putting them in a situation where they couldn't be in the run game and kind of lean on what they like to do the most, and have to throw it a little bit with an inexperienced guy. That was advantageous for us, and we were able to get after the quarterback and pressure him a little bit, get a couple sacks, and then ultimately force some errant throws that gave us 5 interceptions and 2 for touchdowns. So we took advantage of the situation, like we've talked about week in, week out, and the moment was there for us, and we made some of those plays, and there was still some left out there, and our guys are itching to get back out there and try to perfect those.
One of the great encouraging things I thought about the game was the fact that the defensive line pressure the entire game. And whether it would have been their number 1 quarterback, or whether it was their 3rd or 4th that they've used throughout the season, still the pressure was there. And regardless of the quarterback experience level, whenever you're able to do that, it gives the quarterback something extra to think about. And as you said, it can get the quarterback out of their comfort zone, can it?
Absolutely. To steal famous defensive coordinator here in the city of Chicago, Buddy Ryan, said it's hard to play quarterback with tears in your eyes. When you're getting hit and you're feeling the pressure, it's hard to see the defense then. And you start to do some things that you would normally wouldn't, and rush some things. Your mechanics kind of go out the window a little bit. So we were able to get that guy uncomfortable, and ultimately, like you said, we end up with a bunch of turnovers and a couple sacks, and really dictate the tempo of the game there.
Had the lead at halftime. It was the second straight week you'd had the lead at halftime. What was your thinking going into the second half?
Well, I think the team learned from the week before, right? We knew that we had to come out and really, impose our will in the second half, and treat it as if the game's starting over. It's 0-0 on the scoreboard, and you're process orientated. You're playing play by play, and trying to be better on the next one than the previous one, and not taking those ones with you. And we were able to do that, and especially defensively in the second half. I thought going out there, getting a stop, and then getting a turnover and a score, and then getting another turnover and a score. They did a great job defensively of playing with their eyes, and just better technique overall, and communicating better, and those things, you get those big plays when you do that well. So they're proof for them that hey, we got to stay with that, continue to communicate, continue to work together, and make some plays.
Mentioned that every time you go into the halftime break in a way, it's a 0-0 game when you come out for the second half. And also, I think one of the great things about the game last week was the fact that the team was able to pick up where it left off at the end of the first half. As you said, they continued with the momentum. Obviously, it went a long way toward getting the win. And so many times at halftime, that isn't the case, is it? Where there's a huge risk where things might turn around. Opposition's going to make adjustments just like you'll make adjustments. But in this case, the team was able to just kind of keep moving forward. And again, they were able to pick up where they left off at the end of the first half, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, forcing a turnover and making them uncomfortable right off the bat there was huge. So, but yeah, that's, it is sometimes difficult coming out at halftime, whether it's, some adjustments that are made, but also just momentum, and then and just the players of you get into a rhythm of the game a little bit, and then you got to go take a 20-minute break. So it's I remember my dad always saying I hated halftime. He hated halftime because again he'd played both ways back in his day, and he'd finally kind of get his second, third wind and his legs underneath him and be rolling, and then had to take a break. So it's got its advantages, sorry, and disadvantages in a lot of realms, and we actually practice it. We put breaks into practice. Now they're not 20 minutes, but we put short breaks in there where we make them go to the sideline and disperse and kind of almost distract. We pump the music up real loud. We play our fourth quarter song in a lot of those moments. So we're trying to get the energy up, but we're also trying to get them not, and used to coming from a break and then back onto the field to do, whatever the next segment is. So we adopted that this year. There's something new that we did, and really for that reason, trying to make sure that you're able to start fresh and refocus yourself coming off of a break, whether that happens in a lot of phases of football, whether that's a media timeout that you don't get every week, or it's, hey, the offense goes on a 7-minute drive and 10 minutes in real time or whatever it might be. You got to be ready to go if you've been standing on the sideline, especially, you get here in the Midwest and late in the fall, you get some weather and some different things. It's a little cooler. It's maybe a little harder to stay loose and all that. So just want to make sure that everybody's always kind of in tune and used to that. And there's no surprise factor or unpreparedness for those moments.
Two things about the game as well that stood out, and I alluded to it at the top of our segment here, and that is that first, offensively, history-making, Tony Chihino, 302 yards passing, first player, first quarterback in Roosevelt history to have those back-to-back 300-yard games. It's just been so fun to see Tony develop as the season has gone along, and he seems on nothing but right now an upward trend, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's learning a lot each week. He's not close to his potential yet, and that's the beauty of it. We're watching him grow in real time on the field. A lot of times that's happening in practice or with the scout team or whatever it is, and he's out there getting live action. So but it's been exciting. He's an exciting player. He's made a bunch of plays and had made a couple checks in the game on Saturday. He's kind of getting more comfortable with everything going on out there, and excited to see his growth and a great challenge this week and a really good defense. So going to be tested a little differently than he was in the previous two. So excited to see how he comes out, and I know he's working hard to be prepared, and we're working with him to make sure that he understands what we're up against and how to attack it and the game plan and everything. So I'm really excited about him and the guys around him too, picking up, for a young guy, for a true freshman, to step in and take over for really a veteran and a team captain. And Zach Zell has been nothing but great and helping and kind of working with Tony as well as staying ready himself. And in 2 games in a row, he's come in and made big plays for us and in crucial moments. And having that in our pocket is a great feature too. So it's been a team effort, but it's extremely exciting to see the guy that gets the ball snapped to him every play playing well and growing each week.
Do you ever have a moment where you have a player such as the caliber of Tony where he's progressing so fast that you step back and you say, whoa, he's playing great, but he's not yet at his best? Do you ever have that kind of a moment when you're observing a player?
Oh, absolutely. He's a great case of that right now. He makes an unbelievable play, a great read, and delivers a strike, and then he's the next play he might make a poor read. We threw the interception in the end zone there, and it was one of those head scratchers of I'm not quite sure what his thought process was there, and I think when he came off he said as much. He's I'm not quite sure what I was doing there. And it's just that's a young mistake, right? So we know that those types of things kind of eliminate themselves with rapid growth and maturity and in the position and in the offense. So those things start to happen a little bit less. You go back to his first action that he saw, and I think he was 2 for 9 passing or something along those lines. Had an explosive, had a scramble, and then threw a couple balls that weren't in the right direction. But since then, his completion percentage is risen each week, and that's in an offense where we're taking some shots down the field. So it's been fun to watch, and I'm excited to see it again this week, and then continuing to grow through the offseason and everywhere there.
How much of a influence has Zach been on Tony? As you said, it sounds like he's been there with him right every step of the way, mentoring him, and it sounds like it's been a very good relationship between the two quarterbacks.
Yeah. It really started in the spring last year. Tony was an early enrollee last year, so he was with us in spring practice and all that, and that they helped each other a ton, and it's carried over. They have a great relationship. They're constantly communicating and working with Coach Bogart in our offense. To get better each week. It's not about who's out there. It's how we're doing it, and whoever is in there, they're rooting for each other. If Zach's in there, Tony's Tony's rooting for him, and if vice versa. So it's a great room, a great group of guys, and really good teammates and leaders too for our team.
And then defensively, outstanding game as well. It's been kind of a rough go for the defense this season, and I was just so happy to see how the game turned out for the defense. 5 interceptions, and also history making the first time ever that the team has had 2 pick six in a single game. It was just great to see, and you had to be happy for the defense after the game wound up the way it did.
Absolutely. Especially for some of those guys like Carlos Conley, a senior captain that does everything right for our program. He's a great leader. He's a great teammate. He's really smart. I'll never forget my first semester here. Came in as a D coordinator, a couple years ago now, and that spring semester, Carlos was coming off an injury and not participating. So he was in every meeting, taking notes, asking questions with a new defensive scheme going in, like he was going to be out there in every practice. So that struck me right away. Okay, this guy's. He understands what's going on, and he's really working to self when his opportunity is to get back on the field is here. He's going to take advantage of it, and he's going to be prepared. And we saw that growth throughout last season, and now this year, the same kind of thing, and battling some injuries and stuff as well. But ends up making a couple big plays for us and getting in the end zone. And I think everybody, if you saw the sideline on his interception for a touchdown, the excitement for him and everybody knowing what he's put into it and the work that goes into it for him. That's a different level of excitement than any other guy, I would say. Obviously people are happy for their teammates, but it's just a little bit more, a little tick more of emotion there for someone that it means so much to, and our players and everybody, his teammates, recognize that. So, and coaches too. We're all really excited for him because he's made a lot of plays on the football since he's been here, and it hadn't found him this year. So him getting there twice was pretty exciting. So.
There was the one interception. I think it was the second one. I'm trying to remember. Carlos Conley, the pick six. And I'm watching the play. I usually call them through binoculars, and I saw the ball almost get to the point where it was caught, and I almost knew that this was going to be a pick six. You could just feel that. There was something that clicked in my mind, and I'm wondering if you ever have that kind of a moment on the sideline as well, where just at the right moment, or just as the moment, the key moment occurs, maybe a little bit before, where this play is going to be a huge play.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. There's certainly those moments where you feel it, and what the call is. You see what they run, and you know that, hey, this is the perfect. These two things marry up really nice for us. We should be able to make a big play on the football right here if they're going to deliver it to where they think that they should deliver it, and that's exactly what happened on that. We're in a 2 deep shell and buzzing down over 3, and the quarterback thinks that he's got space there to throw that ball, and we're coming down into it right at the right time, and it was a great call for that moment by Coach Fitz there, and Carlos stepped up and made a great play, made a great read on the quarterback, and steps in front of the receiver, and he was catching some heat for the speed going into the end zone, but I think everybody knows he's probably one of the fastest guys on our team, and they were giving him the old jokes there. So, but it's exciting. There's plenty of times where those things happen and we don't make the play. You know what I mean? And you don't miss it. Maybe you just bat it down, or maybe it falls incomplete or whatever it is. But you get that knowing what your call is and knowing what you're trying to defend. And when they're going in that direction, or they're running into that trap or that roll in coverage or whatever it might be, having those opportunities to make those plays. And we've missed some of those this year. And it was fun to make a few of them.
Finally, looking ahead now, closing game of the year on the road. 3 of the last 4 games this season on the road for you here in 2025 at Grand Valley State. Like every team, season of ups and downs for Grand Valley State. How do you see this season finale?
Yeah, they're incredibly talented. Arguably the most talented that we've seen outside of maybe Ferris. But they've had some ups and downs, but they're playing good football right now. They're on a good little run. They had a big win last week over a really good football team in Michigan Tech. So, we know we got our hands full in terms of personnel and scheme, and excited for the challenge. It was a fun day against them last year. We didn't get the result that we wanted, but we gave them everything that they could handle, and we're looking to improve on that this year, and go down swinging.
As we were saying, the final game of the year. It seems to have gone by really quickly. We've talked about it all through the season, but now does it kind of dawn on you that, hey, this is the final game of the year, and once it's in the books, then you got to start prepping up for another season in another 10 odd months.
Yeah, you feel it a little bit. You don't want it to end. As I have a hard time with things ending in general. So, but it's that time is coming. You could kind of see it in some of the faces at practice each day of whether it's an older guy, kind of on his last rung, and some of the words and encouragement from those guys to the younger guys that let them know like how fast it goes. As coaches, you're really still focused on each day. In my experience, the season ends abruptly every time. Whether you're on a playoff run and could be eliminated at any moment, or win at any moment, even you get into a final. You're working so hard to that moment, and then it's over, and then that journey kind of comes to an end, and it's a baptism and a funeral at the same time. It's a baptism of a new team being born, and into the next year, and the celebration of life of the previous team, right? So it's an emotional time, especially knowing how much goes into it, and having been through, playing my last game at one point too, and just seeing that year after year after year. I don't know that there's been one of those days where the season ends that a tear doesn't go across my cheek there, because of everything that you put into it, and everything that the relationships that you built, and all of the work that goes all the way around the program, and the time that everybody puts in, and when it's football's not forever for playing on the field. It's a pretty short period that you get to do it in the grand scheme of life, and you never forget it. You could walk into any one of these establishments down here, and there's probably someone talking about their high school football days or their playing days, because you don't forget those memories, and you don't forget the relationships that you make along the way. And it really is about that journey, and so we're going to be where our feet are up until they say that we can't play and practice anymore. We're going to enjoy every moment, and keep working towards our goal of getting better each week, and trusting the process of our approach. So.
Well, Coach, we started on a warm weekend in September. We close here in November. Thank you so much for joining us each week prior to kickoff, and best of luck in the season finale. And we look forward to chatting again once 2026 rolls around.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's been great to get to sit here and chat with you. And sometimes you get so into the next week's game. I reflect a little later in the week of the previous one, and it's been a joy. So thank you very much, and thanks to everybody on the staff that works with you guys, all the way from our athletic director Mike Cassidy and all the way through to Josh Wallfish and everybody, Kyle Decker, and everybody that helps this operation roll the way it does. And it's an exciting time to be a Laker, and the growth is going to continue in all of our programs, and you're a big part of that too. So thank you very much.